Okay, to home. I'm gonna pull over here and get my paperwork caught up. That's a truckload of potatoes is what that is. So those fields we're passing were probably potato fields. Man, I actually had to work pretty hard for that. So I'm gonna send in my deal here, my ticket, so I can get paid. Haven't done this for a while. Okay, so we'll just go home. So in the meantime, I just got this trailer delivered. I'm out in the country, basically. This is a potato scale place next door to where I delivered this at. I didn't take my hitch off. I'll do that in town. I'm gonna go back to Alamosa to Starbucks and get myself some lunch. I'm ready for that, way ready for that. So this worked out really super well. And this reminds me so much of being a kid because the irrigation ditches here that are full of water, the potato fields, beet fields, whatever is growing out there. I've got people over here, migrant workers in the field. I grew up, this is what my life looked like when I was about anywhere from 8 to 12 years old. This was how I grew up. This is pretty freaking awesome. Surrounded by mountains in a big flat valley. You kind of should be able to start seeing these mountains a little bit, I would think. My gosh, the mist is coming off of them some. So I'm gonna run straight back down because the view's better going this way. You're looking at the Sangre de Cristos over here to the west and north of us. And the great sand dunes are up in there somewhere up to our left, slightly to our left, I think. On a clear day, we would be able to see all of that with great detail because the air is usually so clear and clean here that you can, but for some reason today it's just not. I don't know if it's full of dust. I don't know what it is. Who knows? But it's kind of, disappointing for video for sure because it's very difficult to see what's out there with any detail. Pretty disappointing. And I can't see, it's so hazy in this valley. You've got to get pretty close to the mountains before you can really see them. And then you get out toward the middle of the valley and they disappear back into the haze. It's really kind of weird. But it's kind of sad. Let's see, which way is this thing trying to run me? I don't know where the hell it's trying. It's trying to run me in circles, evidently. Oh my gosh. This GPS is the dumbest GPS I've ever seen in my life. It overcomplicates everything, simplifies nothing. Wow, this makes me wish I was a kid again, really. I'm homesick for my childhood seeing this. Oh well. Can't go back, can we? The thing that we cannot do. Can't go back in time. That would be cool though, to go back in time to when we were kids and mom and dad were young and life was good, Nobody was sick. Nobody's having any problems. Just everything was okay. That's not the way it works, unfortunately. Except in your memories. You can do it in your memories. That's where you can really time travel if you're really interested in time traveling. That's the only time travel we have available to us anyway, as far as I know now. A lot of big trucks out in this area hauling stuff, I've noticed. Of course, there's a lot of industry out in these fields, a lot of businesses, all these great big huge farms and the huge buildings around them and stuff. It's varying degrees of different kinds of businesses. Well, this road sucks. It's quite a ways to get back to the nice road. This one's not a nice road. This is a bad road. Bad road. Bad road. Fighting with my seatbelt. Fighting with the GPS. I'm fighting, always fighting. I'm such a fighter. Always fighting stuff. Sometimes I feel like a female version of Don Juan tilting at windmills. Always trying to fight with something. This pump over to the left that you see sticking up out of the ground, that used to be an artesian well that was running wide open. All this valley was full of those. They drill down to the water table, and there's so much pressure down there that it would just shoot up like a geyser. And they would just let it run, and they'd have a ditch there to collect it and, guide it out to their fields where they needed the irrigation. They've got them all capped off now, unfortunately. I figured that was probably the case. They've got everything super uber high tech contained. God forbid we should have an actual artesian well still running somewhere. The world would come to an end, I'm sure. But anyway, when we would drive through here when I was a kid, you would see water just coming straight up out of the pipe. It's like a foot wide column of water shooting up, however high. It might be 5 feet, might be 10 feet, I don't know. And in the winter when we'd come through here, you would see them frozen like ice sculptures. They'd be frozen artesian well water. It was just the coolest thing ever. It was just amazing. So this part of the world has lost a lot of its charm because people have had to, improve on that and contain them, cap them off. It's over there capped. They're capped. God forbid we might have a real artesian well left. Things that our kids and our grandkids will never know. They'll never see that in their lifetime, probably. And that's a shame, really. Because everybody should see an artesian well at least once in their life, I think. Don't you? Seriously? I think so. Well, now the mountains to the west of me are looking pretty clear, but everything else is looking hazy, and they were hazy when I was coming in. This is just not shaping up to be a good videoing day for me. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn and face west so you can see the mountains I'm talking about to the west of me. Should have done it right there. Next little road that turns out, I'll turn and sit here a minute and let you look. See if I can get you a good view of it. It looks like most of the mist is lifting off the west end of the valley here. That's good. You know, too bad it couldn't have done that while I was heading in west on the highway. You know, but why would it? You know, why would it cooperate? You know, it wouldn't. Things like that don't. So I'm just going to turn in here and show you this. I'm going to pick this spot because I'm sitting here at an angle. So these are west-southwest is the way we're going to be facing. There we go. So this is the view to the west-southwest, and I'm not sure. Yeah, I'll try turning just a little more. Right there is probably the best view we're going to get side to side. Now I'll try and get you some close-ups. So there's snow still up in there. There's snow up on those ridges. And then there are mountains going clear around. I'm going to try and turn here to show you these mountains that are all the way around. And I think these ones over here, because they are west-northwest, now where I'm pointing, I think that is like Monarch Pass up in there and the bottom of the Collegiate Range, I think. And then as you can see, there are even more mountains back in there. They're not showing up real well, but you can see them off in the distance beyond that sprinkler system. Those are the Sangre de Cristos. So I'm going to back out here and show you all this again, going back the other way. So we're pointing northwest. Now we're pointing west. Now we're pointing west-southwest. And then they kind of drop off on this southwest side. There are mountains beyond that. They're just farther away than what you can see from right here. So I'm gonna zoom back. Sorry, I think a lot of this is dust because it's tearing me up, whatever it is. The allergies are getting me. All right. So now we're pointing directly south. And as you can see, you don't see any mountains pointing south right now, but once we cross the valley, you would see more down there because they ring the entire valley. Oh man, this dust. That's part of the problem with the visibility, I think, is this dust blowing around. Evidently, it's potato harvest time, so there's a lot of bare ground. And with the wind and bare farm ground, you get, guess what? Dust. So, you know, that's one of the hazards. That's really dusty. It's really blowing. So the wind, as far as I can tell, is still blowing out of the south. Seems like. So it seems like it's blowing right in our face. We're out of the southwest anyway, but it's blowing hard. The wind has picked up. There's a yellow plant over there. That looks like wild roses. It is. It's wild roses. That's something I need to find. In this part of Colorado, we may find some. If I find some, I'll stop and show you. There's a wild rose that grows in this part of the country and over by Olathe too, and even up into Craig. And it's a wild rose that's orange and yellow. And I need to find one of those and see if it'll grow down in Oklahoma, because I actually have pretty good luck growing roses down there. But I don't know if those would like it down there because they're wild and they're more found in higher elevations. So they may not do well there, but it's an old-fashioned wild rose. And they've got just a neat smell. They don't smell like an average rose. They've got a completely different smell to them. They smell really good. But I was thinking about those the other day, thinking about trying to find one to plant in the yard, because I really miss that scent. You know, there are only a few flowers that I really care too much about the scent of. Lilacs are one. We've got lilacs in the yard. They were there when we got there. And we fertilized them real good, so they've been blooming nice for us. They just don't last very long. And then roses, I like the way they smell. But, you know, I like the way they look better. But the bridal wreath spirea, which they're shrubberies that have little clusters of white flowers on them, and they're little tiny white flowers, but they look like little miniature bridal wreaths. You know, it's like a bridal bouquet. They grow in little clusters like that, so like little bouquets all over the plant. And they've got kind of a neat, spicy kind of smell. I don't know how to describe it because it's the only thing I know of that smells like that. It's not a sweet, flowery smell, but it's a spicy, kind of neat, spicy smell. And I just really like those. So I do like that. And then I like the smell of these orange and yellow wild roses. And I'd really like to find one. So that's something I need to work on, see if I can find one. But if I see any out here, I'll stop and show you what I'm talking about. I'll get out my cell phone since my other video card is being a pain in the butt, and I'm afraid I'm going to run out of space on this one, but I'm trying to make the most of having some actual mountain scenery to show you for a change, because I don't get over in these parts that often. You know, maybe once or twice a year I'll actually get a job up in here somewhere. But maybe this year will be different. Maybe I'll get up here quite a bit. Who knows? Who knows? I got 3 more miles yet to get back down to the wonderful highway, the most awesome highway I've been on in years. It's a doozy. It's a really good one. So I'll be glad to get off this bumpy road and get back on that, at least for a little while it lasts. I'll enjoy it. State wildlife area, and they've got a lock on the gate. That's interesting. So that was a canal there, I think. That was an irrigation canal full of water. This might be this Rio Grande River up here, or that might have been it. Actually, that might have been the Rio Grande River. It was way full of water. That's another creek or river there. Rivers are much smaller in Colorado. You don't have gigantic rivers till you get over to the Colorado River itself. That's the biggest river in Colorado, I think. But rivers around here are what we would call a creek back in Oklahoma because it's so arid. But this is an area that has plentiful water. You know, that's why they have artesian wells in here. For some reason, this area is, blessed with awesome water. You can definitely see why people turned to agriculture here. Had everything. A decent growing season, good soil, rich soil, an almost endless supply of water at the time. And they didn't even have to pump it. Just drill it and let it run. And you may think that's wasteful, but it's really not, because what does water do? I mean, it soaks back into the ground, unless there's so much, it's so saturated that it pools up, and then some of it will evaporate, but it basically makes its way right back into the aquifer. So it's not like, I don't know, it's not like pouring out a glass, down the sink that goes down the sewer somewhere else. It's like if you let an artesian well run here, it sinks back down into the aquifer, it'll filter back down and recycle, it recycles itself. So, okay, now I'm seeing the mountains on the south side a little bit more. Let's see, I'll scoot this up just a hair, where you're not having to look at the ugly hood of the truck so much. Rather have you looking at pretty mountains than the ugly hood of the truck, actually. Okay, so it's going to be a minute before I can get across here. Lots of traffic. Lots and lots of traffic. I'll get a break here eventually. Okay, evidently we're on the edge of Rio Grande County and Alamosa County, because on the left of me it says Alamosa County, on the right of me it says Rio Grande County. And there's a gap in between the signs of about, I don't know, 100 yards. Somebody's not claiming the no man's land in the middle, evidently. I'm going to sit here and eat. There's that old truck that we passed on the way here that was having trouble. I'm going to go over here, park where you can see it, and you'll see what I mean. It's an old damn truck. Oh, just be really brazen and pull right in front of him so you can see him. There we go. That's it. It was having all kinds of trouble. Oh, parked slightly off to the side, so doesn't have to feel weird. But anyway, that's the truck that was blowing all the smoke coming up that hill. I don't know what year that is. 50 something, I think. Maybe 40 something. What is that? Is that an International? I don't know. I don't know what that symbol is. You truck guys can leave if you know. Leave me a note below. What the heck is that? Because I could get out and go ask him, but I'm not going to. I'm going to sit here and eat my egg bites. And I'm going to call Bill, so I shall return. Actually, I'm just going to take off my microphone so you don't have to listen to me eat. We can sit here and stare at this guy while I'm eating, and I'll call Bill. Then I'll cut this out later. Okay. So I've had my egg bites. I'm all fed. I'll try and adjust this one last time. Well, not probably one last time. I'll probably be adjusting it all the way home, because I pretty much don't have a whole lot of choice in routes to take me home, aside from the way I came in, without going into New Mexico and having to pay a permit down there, and I really don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is go back the way I came, I guess. At least down to Boise City. I may cut over into Oklahoma. I may just stay in Oklahoma at that point and run on over and back down. I probably will do that, but I'm just going to head back that way. Don't have all that many options from here, because that whole southeast corner of the state of Colorado is basically uninhabited. Very rural, desolate, open country. I don't like going back through there with this truck doing this. I don't know what it's doing exactly, or if it's just me thinking it's doing something, it may be. But it sounds to me like it's revving too hard or something. Well, no, it didn't do it that time. Huh. I don't know. It was doing it all day yesterday too, so it may just be the sound of the truck. Maybe it's just sounding different to me because I wasn't in it for 2 weeks. That could also be actually probably what it is. I didn't drive it for a long time, and it sounded different when I got back in it. I think my temperatures are good. I'm not leaking anything. I don't have any visible issues, no problems that I can see or smell or feel. So I guess I'm going to cut back across the southern tier of the flats. So what I've got to do that is I've got to go back across the Veta Pass, drop down into Walsenburg, get on Interstate 25, head south for 33 miles and take the exit for El Mar. I think it's El Maro, something like that. And then cut over that way. So, and I don't have to go back through that way station. I went through there coming up, but I don't have to go back through there because I'm in the state. I haven't left the state, so I don't have to worry about that. That was a one trip deal. Man, somebody opened the gate and let all the cows out at the same time. I might have an opening here, just here. Rio Grande River. Pretty good sized river here. It's at least as big as the Yampa. Well, it might be as big as the Yampa. Maybe. Oh, this good coffee really is cheering me up quite a bit. It's making me feel quite a bit better, even though I have to go back down to the interstate route. I guess I could hang a left and go to Buena Vista. And then just, run all over the state while I'm at it, which I would be going a long way out of my way. There's really no point in that. But if you'll notice up above these buildings, there are mountain peaks sticking up. That's that same big mountain I was showing you from out on the other side of town. So I do need to stop up here and get my logbook caught up, I think. Probably should do that. I'll do that where I got a view. If I find a spot where I've got a view. Where I've got something pretty for you to look at. Oh, wait a minute. I did my logbook. Duh. I'm caught up. Oh, no, I'm not. I got to put in my stop in Alamosa. That's what I got to add. Okay. Never mind. Oh, my gosh. Some days. Even though I'm done working, I have to run my logbook all the way home. That's just how it is. It's stupid, but it's just how it is. So, it's what I have to do. Arguing doesn't get you anywhere with those people. It does you zero good to argue. None. Not that I've actually tried or anything either. Just I've got enough sense to know that it will not get you anywhere. So I'm going to pull over here, get way off the road. And take advantage of this little wee bit of shade to do this. So, here's my pen. Here's my fine pen. Got a fat point pen in here I don't like very much. All right. Hey, look at this big, beautiful mountain over here. I'm going to screw up my setup entirely doing this, but look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? The dust or mist or whatever it is coming up off of it some, making it quite a bit more visible. It's so pretty here. When I think of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, I think of a valley like this, where there's animals and fruit and vegetables and everything growing, and fish in the streams, you know, fruit on the trees. This is my own concept of the Garden of Eden, or even heaven. I mean, to me, this would be heaven, you know. And for a lot of us, it is heaven on earth, you know. It's just heavenly terrain, heavenly scenery. So, yeah. I know. I do. I get a little fanatical about it because it's just so dang pretty, you know. But other places are pretty in their own way, too. It's not like Oklahoma's ugly. So, you know, there's that. Put my white Kleenex up over this camera, keep some of the heat off of it. Keep some of the sun off of it. So I've got basically 70 miles to go back across La Veta and drop down again into Walsenburg, or to get to the interstate anyway from here. Now to get to Walsenburg, I guess. Okay, campground. But like you could see the mountains around the west side of this basin, as we get closer to them, you can start seeing the mountains around the east side. It's entirely surrounded. I mean, it just is. There are mountains clear around. It's totally awesome. So I called Bill back. He wanted me to call him back when I got done, but he was busy doing his own stuff, so I figured he would be. He had something he had to do today, and he was right in the middle of doing it, obviously. Which is usually the way it goes, so he'll call me when he gets done. It's all good, as long as we know where each other is and we're okay, you know, that's the main things. Well, we'll get a little bit of mountainous scenery out of this trip anyway. You know, sometimes you got to just take what you can get, right? I could not arrange this. This is arranged by somebody else, so I have to come in and deliver when they, you know, within the bounds of that. So it's not like I could, you know, study the weather and plan it for the optimal filming day. That's not an option. So we just have to take what we can get. So I'm really glad to be here, though. This is doing my heart good to see this kind of country again. I really do miss this. I mean, it's just, this is the stuff I was born to. This is, I'm a mountain girl at heart, really. I mean, I'm kind of a fat lowlander now, but there was a time when I was pretty much a little mountain goat. I was really good at climbing around on hills. Not like mountain climbing, I'm not talking like that, but just walking up hills in cowboy boots. I've got really good at that. And I've covered a lot of this country doing that, walking up and down hills in my cowboy boots. Whenever I had a chance to go out and go climb up a hill somewhere and look for rocks or whatever, I've done it, my whole life. That's been my deal that I do for relaxation. I used to backpack some, but when you've got a bad back, that's not exactly a very fun thing to do anymore. I trashed my back a long time ago. I was in my 20s, I think, when I trashed it, but I backpacked until I was until I was 40, I guess. But then I decided I didn't need to be carrying all that crap around with me anymore. So I kind of quit doing that, but it was interesting, it was fun. It was also kind of scary sometimes, because there were a couple times I got a little bit hurt, not like terribly hurt, but like one time I was coming down out of the Beaver Flat Tops, had my pack on my back. I was alone, walking down the trail, because the person I went with was somewhere back up the trail. I don't know what the hell he was doing. He was never around when I needed him. But I was coming back down, and I ended up twisting my ankle on the trail, and I've got kind of brittle ankles anyway. I've twisted them a lot and sprained them a lot, hurt them a lot, had trouble with them a lot. And the only thing I could think to do, which thank goodness it worked, there was a creek right there coming down, meltwater coming off the mountain. It was in July. It was the same trip I went up in the snow, came back down in some snow. The water in the creek was icy cold because it was all melt off. So I stood in the creek until my feet were numb, and then I just walked really carefully on out, and it was fine. I was absolutely fine, but I could have sat there all damn day waiting for somebody if I'd been hurt badly enough that I couldn't walk. So I decided, hurt or not, you're going to freaking walk, Sue. You're not going to sit here and wait for, something like a mountain lion to come along and have you as a snack. You're going to get up and move. So that's what I did. But I have these kind of talks with myself all the time. I'm pretty stern with myself. I don't talk to other people the way I talk to myself. I can guarantee you that. Most other people wouldn't tolerate it. Because I'm super bossy with me. I'm kind of bossy with other people, but I try to be at least a little bit tactful about it. Not that I'm very good at it. But, I don't know. But I'm not tactful at all with myself. I'm strict and I'm stern. And I just kind of lay down the law. And then I do whatever it is I need to do. And that's just the way I've kind of always been. After I got over being a crybaby kid. I was a crybaby kid for a long time, though. Probably till I was 10 or so. Oh, this is a little subdivision out here to our right that I was telling you about coming in. In the 60s, this sagebrush field out here to our right, which is flat as a pancake, just full of sagebrush. Somebody bought that up and they were developing it, and they stuck a bunch of street signs out in it. They're still out there. There's no way you're going to see them on the camera, but I can see them from here. Street signs are still out there, and then they sold these lots by mail order to people in New York City and back east. And the street signs are still out there in the sagebrush, by God. They're still there. How funny is that? That's hilarious. There are no streets out there. It's just street signs sticking up out of the sagebrush. So, yeah. So anyway, sorry to interrupt my own story like that. I think I was talking about being a crybaby kid. I was a crybaby until I was probably 10 or 11 years old. I had real tender feelers. I'd get my feelings hurt over nothing, and I would cry. Be a little crybaby. And I did that a lot, and when I wasn't getting any attention, I would cry, which I cried a lot because I didn't get a lot of attention. I was a middle child, with one 2 years ahead of me, one a year and a half behind me, and another one 3.5 years behind me, or 4, and another one 12 years behind me. So, I mean, beyond my year and a half old, I was kind of just, I was instructed, and I did pretty much what I was told to do, but I didn't get much babying out of the deal. I didn't get to be a baby much. So I stayed a crybaby for a long time, I think, as retaliation for, not getting enough attention or something. Probably drove my mom nuts. I know it drove Dad crazy. And I would scream too. I was a screaming kid. If I got mad at something, I'd scream. Dad finally told me, he said, gotta knock that screaming off. I was like, okay. I didn't realize how annoying it was to him, actually. But I didn't do it after that. I quit. Now, being an adult and listening to kids scream, I understand exactly why he told me you gotta knock that screaming stuff off. Because it's highly irritating. Especially coming out of a kid that old. I think I was probably 12 or so. At least 12 when he told me that. And he said, you gotta quit that. Okay, I'll quit. But anyway, I was a cry baby. Cry. Get mad, cry. Get my feelings hurt, cry. Somebody else has got company and I get left out of playing, cry. Just everything. You know how kids can be when they're being crybabies. So at some point I decided I needed to stop that shit, and I did. I just quit doing it. And I think everybody else, I don't know if I was any happier for not doing it anymore. I probably was, but everybody else around me, I'm sure, was glad that I quit. It's like, God, about time she knocked that shit off. Nobody said that, but I'm sure they were thinking it. I would have been thinking it if I would have been somebody else. So we've got mountains. That big mountain over here is to the northeast of us. There are mountains straight ahead of us in the east that we'll be crossing through over Veta Pass, and then there are mountains to the southeast of us ringing around the other end of the valley here. It's just really neat, and you'll get to see some of those, I think, when I make this turn up here. The camera should be pointed more in that direction. There we go, yeah. And if you look hard, you might see some big mountains with snow still on the tops. If you can see them through all the dust. There's a lot of dust in the air today. It's just really windy and dusty and not great conditions for being able to see details at a distance, but I'm sorry about that. Nothing I can do about it. But at least we're pointed in the right directions now. You can see I'm not fibbing to you. There are mountains all the way around this valley. This is the last direction we haven't looked at some point during this video. But look at the dust blowing up out there in that field. That's what's ruining the air quality here today, I think, more than anything, is that dust. Just a strong wind blowing out of the south. I mean, that's just what we've got to deal with today. You can see that windsock there, proving it. There's proof. Like the dust out here flying around in the air is not proof enough, right? Or the raggedy stuff blowing on the fences. This is almost what we would call adobe land. It's just really dry, arid ground. Not much growing on it besides sagebrush and rabbit brush maybe. So there's not a lot out there to hold the dirt down. And once the wind gets blowing like that, it really kicks it up. But how pretty is that? Now we're finally getting through the dust and getting to see these mountains a little bit. So we're going to cross these here not too long from now. So yeah, as much as I hate to run these crappy roads again, I'm going to go back the way I came. Every other way takes me too far out of the way, or it takes me into New Mexico where I'd have to buy a permit. I just ain't feeling it today. Don't feel like buying a permit today. Besides, we were in New Mexico not that long ago. Was it 3 or 4 weeks ago? I hauled over there into Albuquerque. So I'm not really that excited about going back into New Mexico today. Anyway. Is this Blanca? Yeah, this is Blanca. Blanca, Colorado. Wonder how it got its name. Maybe it's for the dirt. I mean, the dirt's pretty white here. Or because there's nothing else around. Maybe it's just like a blank. I think it means white in Spanish, right? Or light. Similarly to French Blanc, which I think is they use for white wine, Chablis Blanc or whatever. Blanc. Okay, Fort Garland, and then 53 miles over the pass into Walsenburg. So we're getting back out here. This dang dust. This is really annoying. Blanca Peak. Oh, maybe that's why they call it. Maybe they call it Blanca Peak because it's a white peak. That could be. That great big mountain that we were looking at before, that's Blanca Peak. The one that I turned so you could see. And there is snow up there on it. Still some, not a whole bunch, but there's still some up there above the tree line, above the timber line. Elk, next 4 miles. I did not see any this morning. Doesn't mean anything. I would think by now the elk are heading back up into the high country, or have headed back up into the high country weeks ago. As soon as they could get in there, I would think. They don't really hang out in the lower elevations when it's warm. They get up high. It's kind of weird because I'm used to elk being great big wild loose animals that run around and go where they want to, like up in Craig. But not 2 miles from my house, there's an enclosure that several elk live in, captive elks. It's kind of sad for me to see them that way, actually. And I feel bad for them because I know they're not doing what elks normally do. But, you know, I don't have any reason or any authority to tell somebody not to do that, so what do you do? Elk next 2 miles. I believe this looks like winter elk territory to me, like a wintering ground, similar to Craig. It's high elevation, but not super high, so it's got decent grass supply, and it probably gets a lot less snow down here than they get up in the mountains, which is where the elk probably are right now. They're probably way up in those hills, because they don't hang around down here when it's hot usually. They probably went back up as soon as the snow started coming off, and they'll stay up there until it starts snowing again, probably, or somewhere thereabouts. Late in the fall they'll come back down and winter down in these valleys. That's what they do. It's just what they do. Here we are back in Fort Garland. I don't know if there's an actual fort here anymore or not. Probably is somewhere. It's probably down on the south town, down toward the river, would be my guess. If I had to guess. Recreational pot sales. Gee, should I stop and buy some dope? Probably not. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your point of view, truck drivers are forbidden from partaking in even locally legal pot for reasons that should relatively be obvious. You know, driving big trucks. So evidently, now I may just be throwing this out here as a wild guess, but evidently it might be considered bad form for a truck driver to smoke dope and drive. Might be. And there are people who get aggravated with that, who want to smoke dope when they're home on their days off, but they can't, because if they get a random drug screening, which we're all subject to it at any time, anytime somebody decides we're up for one, if you have dope in your system, then you can lose your CDL over it, and you can lose your livelihood. So a lot of people think that's really unfair. The problem is, and this is why they look at it that way, you cannot tell when the person smoked it, other than it's been within the last 30 days or so. You can't narrow it down to like, oh, you smoked it 27 hours ago, so you're fine now. You can't do that. Like, you can do that with alcohol. You can measure your blood alcohol when it goes back down to 0. But you can't measure your pot intoxication the same way. So they just forbid it entirely, which is totally understandable from my point of view. I get it. I mean, I don't really want people out here driving big trucks smoking dope either, you know, to be perfectly blunt about it. Yeah. Did I say that? Did I do that? I guess I did do that, didn't I? But yeah. So anyway, I'm kind of totally with them on that whole concept that, you know, it's just better to not do it at all than to have questions about it later if something were to happen. So let's say, worst case scenario, a truck driver smokes some pot on their day off. Let's say they got Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off. On Friday they smoke some pot, so they're probably not still high Monday morning when they go back to work. I'd say odds are slim to none that they would still be feeling any effects from it, because it doesn't last that long. But then let's say Monday afternoon they get into a fender bender, and the local police decide to do a talk screen on them, and they come back having smoked pot, but there's no telling when. So the police are automatically going to assume, well, comes back showing for pot, he's a pot smoker. We don't know when he smoked it last, but it was probably recently, within the last 30 days. It could have been this morning. So we're going to write him up, and especially if he's showing any other signs of any kind of, I don't know, red, watery eyes, whatever. Or if he smells like dope or whatever. If there are other factors, the police are going to write him up for a DUID, driving under the influence of drugs, and let him fight it in court. So it's better for the driver to leave it alone and not do it at all than it is to have to try and explain why you have a hot pot test the day that you have a fender bender, even though the last time you smoked pot might have been last weekend or the weekend before that, or 2 weeks ago, because you can't prove it. You can't prove any of it. Of course, on the other side of that, the state can't prove it either. So that's why the DOT has a no dope rule, because you can't disprove or prove that a person is impaired, because there's no measurement of the level of intoxication as there would be with alcohol. It's pretty straightforward. So anyway, more useless stuff for you to know that I've passed along to you. Useless information. Isn't that awesome? I'm a veritable fount of useless information. Now, it was useful information to me back when I was a cop, and it's useful information to me as a truck driver. Beyond that, not really so much. Not very useful. Man, I'm really glad that I stopped and ate. Got those egg bites. That was good. I needed that. Pretty seriously needed that. I don't know what that guy's got falling off his trailer, but he left his door open, or his latch blew open on top. I don't know if you saw that. It was like a fold over door or top to some kind of a compartment, like a hay compartment or something like that, was open and sticking out beside his trailer. If he goes through somewhere narrow, he could rip that sucker right off of there on a light pole, or who knows. This is why when you're pulling a trailer, it's good to be able to see down both sides of the trailer, all the way up and all the way down. Occasionally, even if you have to scrunch down in the seat to see the top of it, scrunch over and look up and see the top of your trailer on both sides. Make sure nothing's flopping around up there or getting dragged out or flipped open or any of that stuff. That was a really good illustration of that. And that guy probably won't notice it until either somebody tells him, or he stops someplace and walks around and just happens to look up and see it. Or until he whacks it on a street light and knocks it the hell off of there and busts a street light, and then the cops will explain to him that it was hanging over when they're writing him a ticket for having, crap hanging off of his trailer. So yeah. I know it's unfair. It's always the guy pulling the trailer that gets the ticket. Kind of sucks. In my little scenarios, Not necessarily in real life, but in my little scenarios. Now, I am running pretty fast. I'm unencumbered by a trailer, and I've got 6 or 7 cars behind me piled up, pushing me hard. This is typical Colorado traffic now, typical Front Range Colorado traffic. It's extremely annoying. I can only imagine how annoyed they were with me when I was coming over doing, 55, coming up over the pass and stuff, pulling the trailer. But I'm not running slow now. I'm running with the pack. Sometimes you're better off running with the pack than you are obstructing traffic and being super stubborn. So, I can say, well, I'm not going to speed on this road. Well, if I don't speed on this road, I'm going to be backing up traffic and pissing people off and obstructing the flow. So at some point you have to make, an executive decision. Do I stick to my guns on this and just not speed at all? Or do I pace the traffic and keep everything flowing? And in this instance, a 2-lane road like this, twisty, turny, mountain 2-lane road, I'm going to pace traffic so I don't obstruct it. And you should too. And I could get all on my high horse about, well, I'm not going to get a speeding ticket with my CDL. Well, you can also get tickets for obstructing traffic. So sometimes it's better to try and blend in than it is to try and stand out. That's what the wokies call virtue signaling. To me, in my mind, that's virtue signaling. When you're in a situation like this, traffic's moving about 70 in a 65 zone. Well, it's not now, it's slowed way down, but moving about 70 in a 65 zone, and you're like, I refuse to drive a mile an hour over 65 because it's against my principles, and I've got my CDL. And I get that way sometimes myself, but I usually do it where people can get around me. I don't die on that hill on a 2-lane mountain road, okay? But that can be more obnoxious than just run with the pack, go with the flow, get through it, and get over to the other side, and then you can slow your ass back down and run at whatever speed you want to when you're not blocking everybody, backing people up. But I've got multiple vehicles behind me, and they're all wanting to run, So, when in Rome, that's probably the best driving advice I can give you. When in Rome, you know the rest of that, right? Do as the Romans do. Yeah. I use the same philosophy when I'm on the interstate, especially around really busy metro areas where everybody's running 80 or 90. And I'm exaggerating some, but everybody's running way over the speed limit. But if you insist on running the speed limit, you just inhibit the flow. So, I don't know what's worse. I know what I think is worse. I think it's worse to slow everybody else down because you're being stubborn or standing on a principle than just merging in, going with the flow, getting through the area, and then do whatever it is you need to do on the other side of it. So that's just my personal take on it. Yours is probably different, and that's fine. We can agree to disagree. Did you know that? Something people don't really seem to understand anymore. A lot of people have taught that you have to be adversarial to everyone about everything, and they've promoted this through adversarial politics and adversarial media reporting, and everybody's fighting with everybody. And I can tell you who started it in the reporting world. If you think back, if you're as old as I am, you can remember Chris Matthews was on PBS News, I think. It was like the Lerner News Hour or something like that. I think he's either on there or maybe on NBC. I don't remember. It's been a while. But he started doing the adversarial, argumentative type of news reporting / commentary type thing where he would sit down with 2 or 3 other news people and they would talk about the topics du jour, whatever's going on that day, and then they would argue about it back and forth, and they would get into some pissing matches that were unbelievably entertaining. They were also unbelievably stupid. And unfortunately, see, I'm running 70 and these people are flying by me. They like running over here on the Front Range, I'm telling you. So people decided that they had to do this in all newscasting, and that's when the media started going down the tubes. So I laid that right at Chris Matthews' door, because he was the first one to do that. And now they all do it. And it drove me crazy on Fox. We're fair and balanced, but they did the same bullshit. They are not fair and balanced. None of them are. They all have their slant one way or the other. Most of them one way, 1 or 2 the other. But they're not fair and balanced. They're lying sacks of shit. And, that kind of thing is it's so annoying to me. But that's where that adversarial reporting style started. Up until then, it was very professional reporting style. Talking, the old guys, Walter Cronkite, Dan Rather, before he turned into a super uber liberal flake. I don't know what happened to him. He used to be a good reporter, and then he flaked out on us in his old age, I guess. All the big names in network news from the 60s and 70s, those guys were actually good reporters, and they prided themselves on being able to present a story, just the facts of the story without putting a political spin on it, and everybody decided for themselves what they thought about it. And that's the normal thing that we grew up seeing on TV, and it's not like that anymore. Our kids and grandkids probably don't even remember a time when the media wasn't telling them what to think one way or another, ramming it down their throats. They probably just don't even remember that. But I remember it for all the good it's going to do. What am I going to live, maybe if I'm really super, super lucky, I might live another 20 years and then I'll be dead, and then everybody my age will be dead, and then nobody will remember any of this shit. It'll all be gone. It'll be ancient history that nobody remembers anymore. And everybody will think the world's just like it's always been, however it is to them the time they were growing up and the things they remember. And it's a very subjective view of the world, but that's the only view any of us have. We don't have an objective view of the world. We have a subjective view of the world because it's our view. It's kind of crazy. It's a weird topic. It's a weird subject, but it's weird. It's a weird world we live in, and these days it's even weirder because we've got all this maleficent hatred going on for the American people and the American system of freedom. And we're being eaten up from within by people that really hate us. They're Americans. They were born here and raised here, and you would think that they would love America and be patriotic, but they're not. They hate our country. One of them, I was reading something the other day. It was like some university professor. I forget what he taught. What the hell was it? I can't remember what it was, but he thoroughly insulted somebody by calling America a shithole of country. He was complaining because Trump called other countries shitholes of countries, which some countries are. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's true. He was just stating a fact. But this guy didn't like it because Trump said it. There are people who will not agree with anything Trump says, even when he's right. And he's not always right, but just to disagree with somebody because it's that person, because you can't stand the idea that he might be right about any damn thing, to me it's just obstinate and ignorant, and that's what these people are doing. So this guy is a university professor in some capacity, and he was putting down America, saying it was nothing but a shithole country. And somebody took exception to it and told him, I don't know why you're being so unpatriotic and hateful about the country we live in, but I love America and I feel patriotic for it. And the guy turned around and tried to get him fired for saying that to him. Like he couldn't stand an opposing point of view. The guy who called America the shithole, the professor, he tried to get the other professor who said, hey, wait a minute, don't talk about our country that way. You know, that's not cool. Tried to get him fired from his job because he didn't agree with him. So this is where we've come to. Now, you know, if you can't just disagree with somebody in this country anymore, so people don't know how to agree to disagree. Everything's adversarial. Even when you make a statement that's insulting to our country and somebody calls you out on it, then you turn around and cry because they hurt your feelers because they said they disagree with you and you think they should lose their job over it. That's like, this is the biggest bunch of pansy-ass crybaby bullshit I've ever heard in my life. And these people are teaching kids. These people are teaching young teenagers, well, older teenagers, in our colleges. These kind of people have access to children. This is ridiculous. We're idiots to let these people anywhere near our kids. It's just, you know, this is my thing that I just can't get. I can't wrap my brain around it. So we're just going over the summit of La Veta Pass, and we're going down the other side now. We're entering Huerfano County. Look at these mountains. Ain't that cool? Way above the timberline there. That's a big one. Big mountain. I'm sure if you walked up in there and looked around, you'd find some kind of gemstones or something. I'd bet money on it. This area is rich in various kinds of gemstones, but we're not going to do that today. I don't think I'd survive walking up that mountain now. I'm so out of shape with the altitude. When I go visiting Craig, it takes me 2 or 3 days just to acclimate again to where I can breathe up there. You know, I'm living fat down in Oklahoma, where there's lots and lots of oxygen. I get up here in the higher elevations, and it's like, oh my God, I don't even know if I want to stand up. It's like this is taking a lot of energy just to walk across this room. I can't breathe. You know, which obviously I can breathe because I can still talk, but it's just, you know, it's different. The air is thinner up here. So anyway, I lament the fact that our society has lost the ability to agree to disagree and to respectfully listen to other people's opinions, and then to respectfully argue with them if we disagree with them. We've completely lost this ability, and it's too bad because that's a really good skill to have. We used to call it, you know, a polite debate. You know, you debate a person on the facts or on your opinions on the facts versus their opinions on the facts, and then you come to some understanding of what the other person actually thinks, but you don't call him a ripping asshole because he doesn't agree with you and demand him to be fired from his job. But these days, that's exactly what happens when these flaky, woke people are confronted in any way, even however gently they're confronted, and it's pointed out to them, maybe that's not a very cool thing for you to be saying. They go off the rails and demand the person's job, demand that their livelihood be ended. They be punished, thrown in jail. You know, there are actually countries in this world right now in this day and age where if you type something mean on Facebook, they'll come to your door and arrest you and put you in jail for it. Seriously. Now, I wouldn't be laughing, but it's actually happened in the UK, as far as I can tell. I mean, I've read about stuff like that. Man, this wind is really howling through this pass. Really howling through here. But I mean, that's where we've come to in today's world. That you're not allowed to disagree with the people in control. And right now, the people in control are the wokesters. So we're not allowed to disagree with them in any way, shape, or form. Doesn't matter if you disagree or not. You know, it's like you tell this person, I'm making you shit for breakfast, and you're going to eat it, and you're going to like it. And when you get done licking it off the spoon, you're going to say, yum, fucking yum. And if you don't do it, I'm going to take away your job. I'm going to take away your home. I'm going to take away your freedom. That's what these people are doing. You know? That's exactly what this is. They're trying to make people eat shit and kowtow and subjugate to them so that they can lord over them and demand that they do what they think they ought to be doing. You know, they want full and utter absolute control over other people. And to me, that's evil. I mean, that is like the definition of evil in my book. Because I don't care who you are, you don't have the authority or the ability to control another human being. It's just like slavery, isn't it? Isn't that the definition of slavery? You know, I'm a slave owner because I own this person and I control everything they do. So how is that any different than slavery? That, you know, of course they use that as they've weaponized that whole idea too. Because we haven't had slavery in this country in 150 years, guys, come on. Civil War ended a long damn time ago. But they're still dredging all that shit up, and they don't do it because they have anything against slavery. They do it because they're trying to guilt trip white people and piss off black people so that we all hate each other, so they can control us, so they can enslave us all without having to go to the marketplace and buy us and slap us in chains. They're doing it with social constraints rather than physical constraints. But you tell me, what's the difference there? What is the difference if a person has control over your thoughts, control over your words, control over your speech, control over your ideas, control over your concepts, control over your politics, control over your agreement or disagreement? Then what's left? What are you actually, what of yourself do you actually own? So you tell me that that's not slavery, just in a new and even more insidious form. Not as obvious, blatant form, but absolutely just as bad, just as evil. You know, and these are the people. I gotta quit. I get going on this kind of stuff, and it just baffles me the way the world has warped and changed everything. The meanings of things, the definitions of things. These people are evil, I'm telling you. They're trying to restructure the world to where they will be the little masters of the universe, and we will all be their slaves. And that's what they're working towards. That's what they want. You know? It's disgusting. It's really disgusting. What's even more disgusting is so many adult human beings in this country don't stand up and say, I've had enough of this shit. You better not do that around me. Just don't do it around me. Shut up. Go sit down. Leave me alone. Leave me out of your bullshit. Because they're afraid. They're afraid of losing their job. They're afraid of losing their livelihood. They're afraid of losing their reputation. They're afraid of, whatever. Whatever. They're afraid of whatever. They're afraid. Well, you know what? I've never had sense enough to be afraid of much of anything, except maybe spiders. Spiders and bears. Spiders and bears. I've been afraid of spiders and bears. Above and beyond that, I'm not really afraid of too much. Well, maybe jumping out of airplanes. I'm not real big on that either. But, okay, that's 3 things. But I refuse to be afraid to open my mouth and say shit. If I've got a mouthful of it, I'm going to damn well say it. And you don't have to like it, but you're not going to stop me from saying it. So, put that in your pipe and smoke it, wokey. I'm on a roll now, huh? Oh my gosh. I get going, I know I do. There's our optimistic flamingos again. We saw them on the way up. They're awfully cute, actually. Awfully cute. we're kind of getting out of the good scenery zone. We're getting out of the mountains, down into the foothills. I think I might have a little pull out up here where I can stop and get you a nice view. Before we leave the mountains, I'll get you the best view I can get you. Scenic area. And this is a scenic area. This is the road to Veta. So that was Veta Pass we came over. There's a little town down here called Veta. And I'm not going to go all the way down to it, but I'm going to pull over here into this little pull out and show you the scene, the scenic scene. Let's see. I'm going to try and get it from all angles here. We'll start over here. Turn that off, it's distracting. I'm going to zoom you out just a little bit, and I'm going to, well, maybe zoom you out, not in. And I'm going to give you the panoramic view. We'll come around a little slowly. I can't do much about the vehicles that are parked in here. There's only one. But this is pretty scenic. This is quite scenic. Okay, you continue to enjoy the scene. I've got to answer the phone. Hello.